Good morning, folks. It's 8:30 in the morning and a beautiful Mexican day here. I just wanted to post a quick video, and it's more of a rant. I don't even have a script for this. But going through the news this morning and going through everything that's happened in the last couple of days, I don't understand this, but for some reason, a major news story has slipped through that no one seems to be aware of, and that was that yesterday Saudi Arabia announced their intention to start exchanging oil with China for Chinese yuan, no longer for the US dollar. And we touched on this a little bit in my BRICS video, and how the petrodollar is propped up by this means of international trade. And to give you some level of context here as to what that means, over 70% of all US dollars currently in circulation are used as a means of international trade. What happens if major economies drop the US dollar and start trading in Chinese yuan? Now, this might be a far-fetched scenario, but if you believe that we're in an economic war, and I think at this point it's absolutely impossible not to, you need to understand that the impacts of the devaluation of the US dollar as it becomes dethroned as a means of trade for many countries, and the countries we're starting to look at now, some of them seem inconsequential, but it's really not. It's like a domino effect as they start to fall. So Belarus yesterday officially announced on the Ides of March, of course, that they're dropping all of their foreign currency reserves. So they're exchanging all of their euros, all their US dollars, and they're switching over to the ruble. Every single Russian who had US dollars or euro denominated accounts in Russia, including corporations, those accounts have been automatically switched over and new accounts have been issued in Chinese yuan. This is a fact. You can Google it. There's not going to be any references for this, but I highly encourage you to research everything that I'm telling you. Now, if you look at the division between Saudi Arabia and the United States, and this is where things start getting a little bit complicated. They're traditional allies, but they're really starting to splinter away from one another. And why we're seeing this, I think, it's a big Middle Eastern geopolitical issue, where China and Russia have both actively supported Iran, and directly or indirectly, Iran has, as a result of that, been able to develop a nuclear weapons program, a ballistic missiles program, and done all kinds of things. Now, about, I want to say a decade ago, China kind of started moving away from Iran. And I think that was intended as a way to appease the U.S. government in its sanctions against Iran. Iran to China just really wasn't worth it. But interestingly, what happened about 6 years ago was that alignment in the Middle East, the traditional trade between China and Iran, shifted to trade between China and Saudi Arabia. Now, what's happened as a result of that is that China has assisted in the production of a domestic ballistic missile program for Saudi Arabia. And it's no secret that Saudi Arabia has long sought after nuclear weapons as a means to counter, of course, the Iranian nuclear weapons program. And it's rumored and widely reported that China has contributed to this program as well in Saudi Arabia. So if we see the Middle East as what's traditionally the center of U.S. trade and the basis for the American petrodollar, and we know that close to 70% of those dollars that the U.S. Treasury has issued over the years is out there as a means of facilitating this trade. If so many countries start to drop it, and you're going to see a large swath, all of the countries that are aligned with China. So you're going to see countries like, of course, Saudi Arabia, the BRICS members countries, so Brazil, Russia, India. India is huge. And even India, I don't want to go too much on a side rant here, but even India, the loss of the US dollar as a primary means of trade with India would be enough alone to cripple the U.S. economy through the devaluation of the dollar. But it gets bigger than that, because the level of influence that China exerts over Africa is not something that we can ignore. Africa has emerging economies that Western nations have been exploiting for decades. And it's actually a huge, well, I'm not going to go down that path. I'm not going to open that door. But let's just say that the majority of Africa is very likely to follow suit with China. And that's because, of course, China holds most of their debt. And the bridge and road initiative that China has been pumping for the last 15 years or so in Africa, developing infrastructure, has really aligned a lot of these countries with the Chinese government. So you're going to see that level of support. And of course, you can't forget the Central and South American countries that would have a lot to gain from this as well. So countries like Venezuela, we already know Brazil, Cuba would most certainly follow suit. And then you have the question mark, the wildcard countries like Bolivia, Ecuador, El Salvador. El Salvador, of course, they have moved away from the US dollar already and actually gone to Bitcoin as a means of crypto. So they're already expressing a desire to trade in something else. And if you look very carefully through the news, there's a lot of these countries that are seeking an alternative. And I think right now what we're seeing is a lot of countries are exploiting an apparent weakness in the Biden administration as it relates to U.S. foreign policy. And this is a weakness that I think a lot of countries have been very opportunistic about. A lot of people have been waiting for a chance, not just to strike back at the U.S., but to move away from this, North Atlantic, this U.S., European Union dominated economy that's very exploitive for them for quite some time. So I am going to be releasing a video later today on the economic impacts of the war, inflation, what I'm doing to hedge my investments against what I see as the probable outcome and the probable future here. So I encourage you to take a look at that once I release it. And of course, as with all things, whenever it comes to your money and your investments, do your own diligence, do your own research. Don't take anything that anyone says on the internet as investment advice. Form your own opinions. So have a great day, take care, and I'll talk to you soon.